Sure. Do I need to do something here?
You're good.
I just talk. Oh,
Just talk.
I just talk. Okay. Okay. I got 2. Double dropping. Used to be good at that. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So speaking of rewriting my story, is that what it is? Transform my story. Look, where do I start? And I usually have too much to say on this shit rather than less. So I'll do my best to get through it. So similar to what we've heard, my story started at a young age, eldest of 4 children, private school, Chapel Hill, resilient, strong, tough, she'll be right, responsible. But also the story was too fat to do ballet, too slow to continue playing Queensland water polo, but had a strong arm, good throw. Not agile enough to play wing attack in netball, too many commitments to keep my touch football captaincy, promiscuous, big drinker, not good at university, too lippy, had too much to say. Yeah, look, a lot. There's a lot of stories there. Tummy was too big, unlovable. All the guys just wanted to be friends with me, but didn't want to be in a relationship with me. Yeah, that was the story that I told myself. Basically, I wasn't good enough. So I decided that I had to do all these things to be good enough. So work really hard, earn lots of money. Grabbed the first guy that would have me, stayed in a 10-year relationship my whole 20s with an older Greek male. It was a very toxic, unhealthy relationship, but he was a good man from a good family. He pulled me aside and told me that I shouldn't smoke, I shouldn't drink, and I shouldn't have tattoos. So that became my story, that I was a shit human because I had tattoos and I smoked and I drank. And basically, I didn't really realise it at the time, but my story was definitely that I wasn't good enough. So I also that I changed jobs too much. I was going to end up like my father, who changed jobs too much. So lots of stories playing on there. But the underlying theme is that I was tough and I was resilient, and she'll be right. I lost my train of thought there. But basically, I got to a stage, fast forward, when I was 30, in my early to mid 30s, where I realised I was working in the corporate world as a project manager. I'd gone back in my late 20s to study project management. I became a director of projects for Colliers here in Queensland and head up their Queensland project management business. So I specialised in delivering large and complex high-rise fit-outs and retail fit-outs. Still didn't think I was good enough. And left the relationship, had the Beamer, the diamonds, the house at Bulimba, had all the stuff, but I still wasn't really happy. Ended up with a pretty healthy recreational drug habit on the weekends. Cocaine was my drug of choice. And that pretty much went all weekend. Had some really good long ladies' lunches though, that was good. Basically I got to a point where I delivered this hectic 15,000 metre fit out. And I was single, I was lonely, didn't want to admit that, lived in New Farm, as I said, had all the gear, no idea. And I remember just one day going, I can't do this anymore. I was also told in there that I had some fertility issues. I'd got a boob job. I just, got to a point where it was all the external things that I thought I needed to make me feel happy or more valuable. And then I remember just one day going, I'm exhausted, I can't do this anymore, something has to change. And so I went to see Anthony, or Awaken Lifestyles, Pure and Lean back then, and started the process. I'd always had coaches and therapists, and I'd done a lot of inner work over the years. But this time was different. I think, like Nicola mentioned, that other people, and I thought I should be doing this inner work. But this was the first time I was like, what's going on here? I just don't know if I can live like this anymore. So I began a 6-month process of going inward with Anthony, and I remember having to look at my story then and all of the stories. And it was dark. It was hard.
and it was pretty real. But the punchline was that I thought that was difficult and that I was now looking at rewriting my story, and I did. But then 6 months later, I found a lump in my breast and I was diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer at the age of 34. So I thought, well, fuck. As if all of that shit wasn't bad enough, we're going to add cancer into my story. So that was hectic. Then I had my breast removed, then I had to preserve my fertility, then was any guy ever going to want to be with me because I hadn't trained at the gym, and I was my body composition was shit, and I had one tit and I might not be able to have kids, and so this whole other story started playing in my head. So I had that story. But long and the short of it was my entire life, my whole story changed in that 6 or 12 or the last 3 years, let's be honest, period. And what I've learned is that none of that story is actually true. It's stories that I've made up or I've taken from people, from society, from family, from friends, from coaches, from my dad, from my mum, from my siblings, and I took all that stuff and attached meaning to it, and then that became my story. What I've found though is that I can rewrite my story, and I think, as a few of you have said, like I can be whoever I want to be. So since then, my life has completely changed. Anthony definitely blew the story of not being lovable and flawed and defective because a couple of months after I had my breast removed, he asked me to be in a relationship. So I was like, hang on a second, that's not part of this story. I'm supposed to be ruined now. And I've had the most meaningful relationship of my life since then. So for me, rewriting my story now is, you know what, I'm not always all right. I am very sensitive at times. I can be vulnerable and feel uncomfortable like everybody else. But, you know, labels like extrovert, like outgoing, like all of these labels and these stories that I had, they're not necessarily the case, and they can change all the time. I'm forever evolving. And now I live from a place of who I truly am, and I'm still working out who I truly am every day. I'm uncovering it. So I suppose that's what it was like then. This is what it's like now. And the biggest thing that I've learnt is that the answers are in me. They're not outside. And that I actually can be myself, and it's safe to be myself. And that if I'm not in the presence of people that allow me to feel safe to be myself, then they're not my people. I don't have a lot of friends these days, believe it or not, because part of that was shedding friends that I'd walk away from interactions and feel really fucking shit when I'd leave those interactions. And that was tough because they're people I went to high school with. You know, you go to a private school and you got this big group of friends and raka. Not going to certain functions. I don't do baby showers because they really annoy me. So having to make those decisions that were in line with myself. You know, now I have a kid, I didn't have a baby shower. But you like constantly checking inwards with who I am and this, you know, new story that I'm creating. So I think that's probably me out of time, but I suppose, the biggest part of rewriting my story is probably uncovering who I truly am and not who my mind or my friends or my family or whoever. And now I do like myself. I'm not perfect, but I don't need to always use other things to make myself feel better. And when I do have SPAC attacks or I do step out of alignment, I can be a bit kinder to myself. It's still a bit difficult, but yeah, today I am really, really grateful that I have the awareness that I can rewrite my story every single day if I choose to. And probably the biggest part of that is you can change your mind. I was insistent on having a natural childbirth. I did a midwife program where there were no drugs and I'd have to check out of the hospital and into the ward where I could have drugs, so that drugs weren't an option for me. After labouring for 12 hours at home, walked into my drug-free program and I went, you know what, I fucking changed my mind. And my mind started telling me, oh, but what are your friends and family going to think? You've been banging on about this drug-free, it's women's inherent right, blah, blah, blah. You're in this program, you have to go out of the program. You've taken a spot in somebody's program and you're going to go, now you have to move out into the general hospital. Oh my God, what have you... And being able to pick myself up and go, oh, geez, you're kind. That mind is so unkind. I truly just changed my mind. And that's really important
part of rewriting your story is you can change your mind at any time. So.